India's official broadcasting channel, Prasar Bharati, has created quite a stir among journalism circles by sending out copyright claims to independent journalists who post videos on YouTube. These are videos that cover topics like parliamentary proceedings, speeches made by Prime Minister Narendra Modi both inside and outside the parliament, and yes, they do contain 10 to 30 seconds of Prasar Bharati content, the only channel that is allowed to cover the parliament in India. Now, it may be argued that considering Prasar Bharati is a government funded organization, individuals like independent journalists should be allowed to use that kind of content without having to face any copyright consequences or copyright infringement claims. According to the copyright claims sent by Prasar Bharati, and by the way, they were sent via YouTube and not Prasar Bharati directly, the content, the short video clips used are under the ownership of Prasar Bharati. This means that any of the monetization created by these videos will be going to Prasar Bharati instead of the journalists. Now, what's the problem with that? Remember that I'm talking about independent journalists, which means that they solely depend on the revenue created by these videos to make a living. So, yeah, the idea that Prasar Bharati is sending out copyright claims to independent journalists solely for using 10 seconds of video does seem a bit harsh. And yet, under India's copyright law, government entities do have copyright ownership. Now, there is a separate section under this law that also talks about exemptions from copyright infringement, which does include news coverage or coverage of current affairs. So, this again circles back to the same issue at hand of why can't independent journalists use Prasar Bharati content to cover news? What exactly are we missing here? What does Prasar Bharati have as an argument to make it feel that it can send out copyright notices? And what does a foreign entity like YouTube have to say about the topic of copyright infringement and fair use? Which are the journalists who are going to be affected by this kind of a copyright practice, and what can the current independent journalists who have already received these claims do about them? After speaking to YouTube officials, Prasar Bharati officials, journalists, legal experts, and our own reading of the copyright law, MediaNama last week came out with a very detailed article that talked about, or at least tried to answer, some of these questions we have talked about. Now, if you want to know what exactly we learned over the course of these conversations, click on the link below in the description box to read the actual article.